Part 3. It was nearly 8 o'clock in the evening when the carriole drove into the yard of the Hôtel de la Poste at Arras. The man whom we have followed thus far got out, left the hotel, and began to walk in the city. He was not acquainted in Arras. The streets were dark, and he went haphazard. Nevertheless, he seemed to refrain obstinately from asking his way. He crossed the little river Cruchon, and found himself in a labyrinth of narrow streets where he was soon lost. A citizen came along with a lantern. After some hesitation, he determined to speak to the man, but not until he had looked down, before, and behind, as if he were afraid that somebody might overhear the question he was about to ask. "Monsieur," said he, "the courthouse, if you please." "If monsieur wishes to see a trial, he's rather late. Ordinarily the sessions close at 6 o'clock." However, when they reached the great square, the citizen showed him 4 long lighted windows, on the front of a vast dark building. "Faith, monsieur, you're in time, you're fortunate. Do you see those 4 windows? That's the court of assize. There's a light in there. Then they've not finished. The case must have been prolonged, and they're having an evening session." He followed the citizen's instructions, and in a few minutes found himself in a hall where there were many people, and scattered groups of lawyers in their robes whispering here and there. This hall, which though spacious was lighted by a single lamp, was an ancient hall of the episcopal palace, and served as a waiting room. A double folding door, which was now closed, separated it from the large room in which the court of assize was in session. He approached several groups and listened to their talk. The calendar of the term being very heavy, the judge had set down 2 short, simple cases for that day. They had begun with an infanticide, and were now on the convict, the second offender, the old stager. This man had stolen some apples, but that did not appear to be very well proved. What was proved was that he had been in the galleys at Toulon. This was what ruined his case. The examination of the man had been finished, and the testimony of the witnesses had been taken, but there yet remained the argument of the counsel and the summing up of his prosecuting attorney. It would hardly be finished before midnight. The man would probably be condemned. The prosecuting attorney was very good, and never failed with his prisoners. He was a fellow of talent who wrote poetry. An officer stood near the door, which opened into the courtroom. He asked this officer, "Monsieur, will the door be opened soon?" "It will not be opened," said the officer. "Why not?" "Because the hall is full." "What? There are no more seats?" "Not a single one. The door is closed. No one can enter." The officer added, after a silence, "There are indeed 2 or 3 places still behind Monsieur the Judge, but Monsieur the Judge admits none but public functionaries to them." So saying, the officer turned his back. He retired with his head bowed down, crossed the antechamber, and walked slowly down the staircase, seeming to hesitate at every step. It is probable that he was holding counsel with himself. The violent combat that had been going on within him since the previous evening was not finished, and every moment he fell upon some new turn. When he reached the turn of the stairway, he leaned against the railing and folded his arms. Suddenly he opened his coat, drew out his pocket-book, took out a pencil, tore out a sheet, and wrote rapidly upon that sheet, by the glimmering light, this line: "Monsieur Madeleine, Mayor of Montreuil-sur-Mer." Then he went up the stairs again rapidly, passed through the crowd, walked straight to the officer, handed him the paper, and said to him with authority, "Carry that to Monsieur the Judge." The officer took the paper, cast his eye upon it, and obeyed.